Welcome to Reddit Aliens. What's the family secret you're not supposed to know about? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Found out one night that my mom planned to leave my abusive dad when I was super little. He was beating us all, making her work 3 jobs to pay the bills, and his drug habit. Just a bad time. My mom went to her sister and told her what my dad was doing to her and asked for help leaving. My aunt's reply? I don't believe you. My mom stayed another 10 years because of this. Her own sister, hearing about all the abuse and dismissing it, really effed with my mom mentally. My mom didn't want us to know, so we would still have a good relationship with our aunt. I've always heard that my parents' divorce did not go well, but both my mom and dad were relatively adamant about not telling me until I was 18, which I am now, and still haven't heard the whole story. However, over the years I've heard bits and pieces of what happened because my parents or family members occasionally slipped up. Currently, I know that during their marriage, my mom was not allowed to have any friends, nor was she able to talk to strangers without getting grief. She generally had to do whatever my dad said unless she wanted an earful. She filed for divorce when I was 2, at which point my dad proceeds to make her life a living hell as the court case happened. He tried to get full custody of me, which didn't happen, but he did get a half-and-half deal. He took my mom's car and somehow had it break down so she couldn't use it, accused her of multiple crazy things including prostituting herself while I was there and selling drugs, neither of which are true, and badmouthed her to his family. They didn't believe him, but they also didn't keep contact with my mom because they knew he'd give them hell for it too. He also at no point ever paid child support. Scumbag. I have also been told stories of how I'd write notes to my mom saying I hate her and wanted to go to my dad's house instead, likely because he would tell me how awful she was, and I was young and believed him. I've since apologized, and my mom laughed it off and told me she knew I didn't know any better. She has also said that she generally couldn't talk to him for anything and chose not to enforce any of the court mandates, the child support included, because she didn't want to stir anything up again. So yeah, apparently I've been in the middle of what might be the messiest divorce I've ever heard of. In my family, I'm one of 6 girl cousins that are about the same age. One other is my sister. A relatively distant family member has sexually assaulted at least 4 of us 6, all before the age of 5, brutally too, like enough that they had cuts and bruises all over them. My uncle got super drunk one day and told me about it. 3 of the girls went through therapy, but he's not sure they remember. One repressed it immediately, and as far as anyone knows, she has no idea it ever happened. Everyone has kind of just swept it under the rug, and it's just the thing that doesn't get talked about. To this day, my mom refuses to tell me if I was also assaulted. She has also threatened anyone else that knows into not telling me, although honestly, I don't think she even knows. She tried to make sure I was never alone with him at all, so maybe not. The only one of us 6 I know that was never harmed is my sister, since we moved away by the time she was born. When I was 12, my mom's cousin Laura got married. Laura's sister Emily was the MOH. Emily gave a speech talking about how glad she was to finally have a brother and how much she loved Adam and welcome to the family. At this point, my grandmother turns to my mom and says very quietly, "Too bad they don't know about their brother." I asked my mom later about this. She was horrified that I'd overheard and said for me to never speak of this, but she did tell me what happened. So my great uncle was this young, handsome Italian teenager and had an affair with a married woman when he was 16. She got pregnant, and they knew it was my great uncle because the husband was infertile, as well as this Norwegian couple suddenly having a black-haired, olive-skinned child. It was a huge scandal that got hushed up, and the married couple ended up moving away, and my grandma and her sisters were sworn to secrecy. My great uncle has been dead 10 years now, my grandma 12 years, and my mom 11. I don't know who else might know and feel trapped in speaking up to my mom's cousins about this. It haunts me. Not necessarily something I'm not supposed to know about, but I'm sure the person, if still living, does not know. In World War II, my grandfather was part of Big Red 1 and had, in a manner of sorts, put his relationship with my grandmother on hold during the European theater. After the war, my grandfather was still stationed in Germany and hooked up with a German woman and got her pregnant. 9 months later, The woman gave birth to a healthy baby girl, my aunt, whom I have never met, and my grandfather named her after my grandmother back in the United States. He was eventually shipped to the Philippines, got malaria, and was very sick for a while. When he finally got back to the US and was discharged, he kept in contact through letters for a period of time, but after a while, the letters stopped coming. My uncle got married to a woman that was married before to a severe schizophrenic man. That man threatened to kill her and their 2 children, so he got a restraining order. One day, he dressed up as an old lady and went to her house anyway. Their children were very young and in bed upstairs. He went to threaten to kill her and their children again, and she wouldn't let him. After a physical struggle, she could lock him in a room, and then he hung himself. She never told her children because they saw their dad as their beloved dad, not as a sick person that threatened their lives. The children blamed their mother for his death for a long time without knowing what really happened. In their eyes, their mother stood there while their beloved dad killed himself. To this day, they don't know, and their mother, so my uncle's wife, got cancer and died. That I was a test tube baby. The way I found out was that my mom and dad divorced and were fighting for custody back and forth. In order to sway me to tell the courts that I wanted to live with her, my mom told me in the car on the ride home. I was 7. Needless to say, I didn't give a shit. My mom gave up custody and ran off. As far as I am concerned, he's my dad through and through. I told him years down the line. He was horrified that I found out that way, and an awkwardness fell over him. I told him I didn't give a shit about any of that, and I loved him as far as I was concerned. He was the best parent I could have had, and that he did a stand-up job raising me. The amount of pride in my dad's face is still a very vivid image for me that brings a tear to my eyes just typing this. Back in the day, when my great-aunt was 16, she got pregnant out of wedlock. I guess they used to put some mothers under when they gave birth. When she woke up, she was told the baby died. She was devastated, and the death had a profound effect on her mental health, and she went through a slew of bad marriages. 30 years later, a woman appeared at her door. It was her daughter. While my great-aunt was under, my great-great-grandmother had the nuns put the baby up for adoption. When she grew up, she went looking for her birth mother. They instantly connected and had a beautiful relationship for the remainder of my great-aunt's life. Unfortunately, my great-aunt's life was taken very suddenly, and it had been rumored that her husband murdered her. It was never proven, even though there was evidence he did it. He was a very wealthy and had a very powerful friends, and he also threatened her daughter. She never came back. Although this story is very old, I only learned about it when my mom and aunts got drunk one Christmas. They were told to never discuss it. My aunt married my mother's rapist. They are close in age and were both interested in the same guy who grew up near them on another farm. When my mom was 15 or 16, they were hanging out together and he raped her. My aunt told everyone she was lying and my grandparents believed her. My mom pressed charges anyway, and my aunt went to court and gave him an alibi. He was acquitted, and my aunt went on to marry him and have a daughter with him. I believe he may have abused her as well because she turned to drugs pretty young. The entire family simply accepted him as a member and silenced any objections by my mother. She had to see him at family functions and pretend it never happened in order to reconnect with her sister. No idea why she wanted to, but you only get one family. My mother eventually committed suicide, and I believe the rape and her family's subsequent acceptance and support of her rapist were the causes. It was a complete secret. I actually liked this uncle. I only found out after she died, when her husband got drunk and let everyone have it. Totally changed how I see my family. When I was 22, I found out that I was adopted. When I tried to apply for a loan and needed my birth certificate, my parents said they'd lost it, so I spent weeks trying to track a copy down from the government departments, providing name and date of birth, location of birth, etc. I finally got a letter back. The opening line I'll never forget. According to our records, you were adopted in 1982. I was born in 1976. Turns out everyone else in the family knew but never told me. I've not kept in contact with any of them. So yeah, that's a family secret I was never supposed to know. P.S. I'm totally fine, well-adjusted married man with a wonderful 9-year-old son whom I treat as my entire world, a feeling I never had. That I'm related to a couple millionaires in Chile and a billionaire in Puerto Rico. Turns out my grandma was disowned after asking for money after she gambled it all away. Now me and my mom struggle from month to month basis, and I only found out after I saw a ripped check in the garbage for $200,000. Was stunned and looked up the names. Took a week away from my mom to ask them why we never met or I didn't know about them. Apparently, they have tried numerous times over the years to help us, but Grandma taught my mom that they are no family of hers, and if they didn't want to give her money before, there's no reason to accept it now. The least I can say is that I'm pissed. Edit. I've gotten DMs asking if the rich family members offered me money or something. Yes, they have, but I couldn't accept it. It just plain doesn't feel right with me. I wouldn't want to just go, hey, I'm not them, so can I have money? I want to get to know them for real, not just be a parasite. Plus, I'm not the kind to ask others for favors. Edit 2. Gotten comments and more DMs. When I say I couldn't accept money or I don't want to be a parasite, what I mean is these people are family I never knew I had. I have chances to meet a whole side of my blood and I'm excited for it. I don't want to start off our relationship by me reviving things from them. Imagine you just found out your dad isn't your blood dad, but a guy your mom married. You love him. To you, he's your dad. But then you meet your blood dad and he wants to just give you things. You want to get to know him, not receive things from someone you don't really know. I was never told that my sister is my half-sister. Her dad died a few weeks before her first birthday. My dad met our mother, married her, and adopted my sister. It was a big secret, and I was never allowed to know. There was a photo album our mother had, and only my sister was allowed to look at it. At 11, a friend of the family babysat me and told me. I kept it a secret for a few more years and then asked my parents why they never told me. Their response was, it was never a secret. Also, my grandparents shared a house with his brother and his wife's aunt. Turns out my grandfather had an affair with my aunt. They had kids. My dad was really close to his cousins, who were actually his brothers. He denies it. My dad is still friends with his first serious girlfriend. Her daughter came over and visited. I absolutely love her and we got along really well. A few years later I went to visit her. We got lost one day and ended up in hysterics laughing. Someone passed by and said, wow, you can tell you're sisters. You look the same and even have the same laugh. We stopped laughing and it was kind of awkward. Later that night, we both and having a few drinks, so we decided to take a photo. A guy walks up and says, I can take a photo of the sisters. We replied with, I wish. Then we started talking about how we both think we are sisters. Guy realized he walked into a weird moment and left. Story was, her mom and my dad went traveling overseas. She got pregnant. My dad told her to abort. She said she did, left him, and went home. She married dad's best friend and had the baby. She asked her dad, but he never admitted to it. I won't ask my dad because he doesn't deserve her as a daughter. She's awesome. Also, my husband's father is a predator. He's a disgusting piece of shit that should be in jail. He hit on me when I was 17 and has disgusted me ever since. I didn't talk about it till a few years ago when I had my daughter. I was warned by his family not to leave him with her. We have been no contact with him for over 18 years, so never gonna happen anyway. More family on both his sides have come out with stories. It supposedly happened to children and adults. We have no proof. It's only hearsay. But if I could, I would report him. I wish I could see him in jail. Oh boy, there's so many, but off the top of my head, my great-grandfather was a Nazi, got his arm blown off father's side. On my mother's side, my great-grandfather cheated on my great-grandmother constantly while also demanding, I don't think it was consensually, for more children. They ended up having 12. All of their kids hated my great-grandfather and knew about his cheating because he never hid it at all. My great-grandmother was apparently severely depressed due to this. Finally, their 12 kids, whom loved my great-grandmother immensely, told her that they wouldn't be upset if she cheated on their dad. They wanted her to be happy and knew she couldn't escape him. They even helped her find someone. She was so scared of my great-grandfather, but eventually cheated on him. He was demanding even more children, so she had to forge his signature so she could get her tubes tied and never told him. She eventually got breast cancer and passed away. Like, what a sad life, when all 12 of her kids were well into adulthood. After the funeral, my great-grandfather supposedly was still super abusive and toxic and told the 12 that they weren't getting anything of hers. They lived in a trailer park. so she didn't have much, just fake jewelry and little sentimental items. So the 12 broke into the trailer when their dad was asleep, broke into his room where he kept all of his late wife's things, and they all teamed up and stole what they could to give to their kids. He woke up a minute after they left the bedroom and raged out, but they were free. Buckle up, my family is pretty effed up. My great aunt and great uncle on my mom's side are actually her half brother and half sister. Grandma was pretty wild in her youth and had 2 kids before marriage, and my great grandparents adopted them. That was pretty common for the time, I guess. The only person that really doesn't know is my great uncle. Both of them have mental problems. Aunt's been in and out of comas and sometimes thinks she's killed people. He's threatened to kill most of the family. Same grandma basically sold my mom to mom's full sister's first husband in her early teens. Grandpa had cancer and was dying. Mom dropped out very early and grandma wanted money. I found out after grandma died and that aunt doesn't understand why I refuse to have anything to do with her. Edit. I fully believe I'm a child of convenience for mom. She was 16. Dad was 18. I think she saw him as a way out. This has got to be Florida. Same aunt married her ex-husband's nephew, while her ex-husband was sleeping with his brother's ex. This made him my cousin's cousin and stepdad. But one of my cousins had a kid with their cousin, stepdad's half-sister. So he was this kid's uncle and grandpa also. Wow. This kid would get raised by my aunt. We all remember her, right? He molested his half-sister, spent a few years locked up, and got welcomed back into the same effing house by his grandma because why not? Dad's mom ran out when he was young. Grandpa did his best, but he had a record for stealing cars as a teen, so not a lot of great job opportunities. He remarried dads, got more step and half siblings than I can remember, most drug addicts. His only full brother was a child predator who molested his first wife's daughter, his stepdaughter. My sisters and I weren't supposed to know. As far as I know, he never messed with any of us. The 2 closest cousins to my age beat me and attempted to rape me once. I got away. The only person I've told is my wife, who was not so lucky when someone she won't name went after her. One of the cousins then tried to rape me, was murdered over drugs. The other crashed his motorcycle and is slowly dying. I don't think that's all, but it's all I can remember right now, and I'm tired of typing. Wow.